being here. Come on in, you guys. We've got a small crew. This will be super informal. We'll all just say a few words, super brief, and then happy to take any questions that you have. Let me get this water out of the way. And why don't we just start with quick? Why don't we start? Hey, you go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Good to see you. Yeah. And why don't we just do quick introductions? We'll start here and come across. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Governor. Joe Timmons, State Representative here in the 42nd Legislative District.
Satpal Sidhu, Whatcom County Executive.
I'm Bob Ferguson, Governor.
Alicia Rule, State Representative.
Rosemary LeClaire, Chairwoman of the Nooksack Indian Tribe.
Frank Lee, the Secretary for the Nooksack Indian Tribe.
Hey, I'm Donald Tanksley, the Sheriff of Whatcom County.
And Matt.
Matt Klein, Deputy Director of Emergency Management for the Sheriff's Office.
So I'll start. We'll just informally go through, and we'll keep it short and really defer to your questions. So first, we just want to emphasize how much we all appreciate the hard work of so many folks in this facility and facilities like this all across the state, the first responders, so many thousands of Washingtonians who are really stepping up during a big crisis in our state. This natural disaster, is extremely significant. It's historic in nature, and we're all treating it as such. That we know many Washingtonians are really hurting right now at an individual level, with significant loss of homes, and we see them, and we're doing everything we can to move resources to them as quickly as possible. We also know, just statewide, zooming out a little bit, the impact on our infrastructure, for example, is profound. There's just really no way to sugarcoat that. And frankly, we don't really even know the full scale of the impact when it comes to our infrastructure and what we're facing until we see those waters finally recede and get a chance to really evaluate what the situation is. But all that underscores how critical support from the federal government will be when we seek disaster relief. That we have an emergency declaration now from the federal government that helps us with very short-term needs, which are critically important. Saving people's lives, clearing road debris. That is different than disaster relief, which is a separate process where the dollars come in to help business folks, individuals who've lost homes, that type of support for local governments, the state, that type of thing. That's going to be a process that takes some weeks, but we'll be making a compelling case to the federal government, as you might imagine. Last thing I want to say real quick is the situation is still very, very unpredictable. There are levees that, are extremely stressed right now. Every expert I talk to emphasize, they say, look, Bob, these levees withstanding a week plus of this amount of pressure is a lot for them. And so we have National Guard, we have first responders, we have folks stationed up and down both sides of the state to make sure they're there in case there's any kind of a breach. But it is a very, very fluid situation, very dynamic, very unpredictable. If folks get an evacuation order, like we had one in Pacific Washington just 2 nights ago in the middle of the night, follow those evacuation orders. It's a very, very unpredictable situation. So what we're going to do is maybe just come down the row here. I'm going to start maybe with the chair. Actually, we'll come this way. Is that all right? Then we'll come down. So go right ahead, Chairman. We'll go with you first.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for being here. Chairwoman of the Nooksack Indian Tribe, I just want to reach out to the families. Our heart is with you in your time of need. We understand that disaster hits, Mother Nature speaks, and we don't have a way of saying where it will hit and where she will speak, but we, our hearts are open to you in this disastrous time, and we look forward to the community building that's been going on within Whatcom County. We understand that there's a great need for infrastructure. Thank you to all the first responders.
Thanks so much.
State Representative Alicia Rule, I just want to take this opportunity to thank every single person who decided to get up early and stay up late and help their neighbors. This has been a testament to Whatcom County like I haven't seen in a long time. It's beautiful. I know you're tired, but going to your neighbors and making sure that they have what they need, stepping up. We've seen business step up in a way that has been breathtaking. We've seen people refuse to accept help because they're so concerned that their neighbor needs more help. Thank you to every single person who's decided to say yes to give to something and someone more than themselves. That is the best of who we are. Thank you for showing us that. And thank you to every single one of these partners here. We can do more when we do it together, and everybody here has decided to say yes to that. We're very grateful to the Nooksack tribe. There's a human toll here that I will never forget, faces of children and parents and elderly who really are in a hard spot, and I know that this team is ready to work nonstop until we're able to meet that to the very best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I know Governor has a much, much bigger task for 12 or 13 counties. I'll just talk about our one county, and but the impacts in every county are the same, and they're severe. In a way that what we faced 4 years ago, it has helped us a little bit that we were better prepared. We had less than half the rescues like we had last time, but nevertheless, the damage and to the individuals, families, and businesses is devastating. We toured today with the governor to Everson and Sumas. The work being done by first responders, our EOC people, 24/7, I think that has made a big difference. Our public works has been on every culvert, working with the WashDOT on highways, our county roads, helping each other, sharing equipment. I think that has been really, really, blessing. And we want to continue this work. We know there is an immediate need for shelter, for small assistance for people to move back into their house, get small dryer or heater or a humidifier or insulation. We are very much aware of that, and we are working on with our nonprofits to meet those needs and whatever county funds are and these Department of Commerce funds are. So thank you for you to get this message out to the public. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And again, Joe Timmons, State Representative here in the 42nd. I'll be brief. Want to start by again saying, as has been said, thank you to our first responders and really everyone who stepped up throughout our community. The last week has been so challenging on so many people. I know I'm not alone in this. Other folks here as well. I've done everything from distribute meals to fill sandbags, help clean out houses, of course, coordinate with state agencies, local governments, the sheriff's office, et cetera. It takes an hands-on deck approach, and I know we have the community to do that. I want to thank the governor for being here. I think he has seen some of the challenges we have, but also seen how resilient our community is, and I really appreciate that, Governor, so thank you.
Thank you. And I did have a chance to visit Sumas and Nooksack and Everson to get a sense of the challenge there, talk to folks on the ground there. And, it's pretty sobering, to see the impacts in that community. And that's being replicated, as we know, in county after county after county. So from Stehekin to Yakima to Lewis County, up the corridor to right here. It is sobering to see that level of impact. But this last thing I'll say is the level of cooperation that I see from tribes to governments to organizations like the Red Cross to individuals, neighbors helping neighbors. I mean, it's inspiring. It really is in a time of real crisis. That is serving us well as a state. And so I ask people all the time, hey, are you getting the resources you need? And the answer is either always yes or, hey, we're in touch with the right people to do that. We're going to be tested to continue that. That's not going to be easy. We all have challenges with that. So it's going to be, I think the message I really want to communicate to the people of the state of Washington is that we're in for the long haul. Donate to charities that support folks on the ground. We're going to be doing our part as government officials and tribal leaders to make sure we're staying coordinated. But it's going to be a challenging time, not just for a matter of days or weeks, but really, it really will be for a period of many months. And so with that, we also appreciate, as been said, you being here and amplifying this message. As I said in a press conference yesterday in Seattle, I'm 110% convinced that media coverage of this is saving lives.
Yes.
Like in communicating, some governor in a sweatshirt saying follow evacuation orders, hopefully it helps, but I don't think it's as powerful as actually seeing pictures and the videos of rescues and evacuations and the impacts that has a different impact, I think, than honestly anything we can say. So we really deeply appreciate your voice in all this as well. We're happy to answer any questions that folks have, and Matt can help answer questions from the sheriff on, hey, if there's sort of details about what's going on as well.
Governor, you mentioned it a little bit. Jonathan Sims with KOMO News. Talk about a little bit about the levees outside King County. We focused a lot on King County yesterday and the days before. What about the rest of the state?
We're concerned. Again, I'm just going to repeat this. this is a very active situation. Our infrastructure has done overall a remarkably good job of withstanding historic levels of flooding for a historic period of time. That said, they're under a lot of stress, and so that's why every morning I get a briefing that includes obviously the status of our levees, our dams, our infrastructure. And while we feel positive about it, everything gets emphasized is no sure things. People have to be vigilant, and so there's active monitoring about our infrastructure all across the state in real time. So a conversation I had on my drive down from Sumas to here was on the phone with my chief of staff, going through a report and saying, hey, we need to make sure we got resources at certain spots around certain levees where we need to be ready for something that could potentially happen. We hope that doesn't. We hope we get through it. But it is, of all sort of the very immediate concerns that we have, that is certainly right at the top of the list.
Do you have any updates on Highway 2 and how much of a big deal is that for our state here?
Well, look, I don't need to tell any of you, when you take a major highway that crosses our state, when that's down for what's undoubtedly going to be a period of months, the impact to businesses, to individuals, to our state, it'd be hard to overstate the significance of that. I know when, part of my job is to, when my team says it's going to take a certain amount of time to get something done, my job say we need to do that faster, right? So when we had a conversation about Highway 2 a couple days ago, and I was like, guys, it can't be months, like, come on. And they started showing me photographs and some video. Look, I don't think you got to be some engineer to understand that's going to take some time. It just is. And we will obviously, and the team understands this, once we're able to get in there and actually do work on it, that's going to take some time itself. It's not safe in certain spots to even get people to it. It's very unstable right now. There are still very active landslides, as you know. Once we're able to get in there and begin the work, once that happens, the team understands that, hey, it is a 7-day-a-week operation. So we do have around the state in a couple situations hiring outside contractors to help. That'll probably happen more in the future. My team understands if we hire a contractor, that contract has to be 7 days a week. I'm not signing another contract. It's a 7-day-a-week operation. And so that's the type of focus we need to move as quickly as possible. So I think the people of the state of Washington will understand the magnitude, as long as they feel, hey, the work is getting done as quickly as possible. And so that's why I'm communicating the team. But look, I'm also deeply appreciative of the WashDOT crews. They've cleared, I should have the updated number, my apologies, but I know it's over 60 of our highways. For every 2 they seem to clear, another one, something happens. There's a landslide or something happens. So they are literally working around the clock to clear those roadways as quickly as possible. That's happening at the local level as well. And we want to make sure they're able to do that in a safe way. And Highway 2 it's unstable right now, so we've got to be mindful that we're making sure they're safe in the work that they do.
Can you address the Department of Energy's Trans-Alta coal generation plant? Have you heard anything about that?
I think I had a statement out yesterday about that, I feel, so I don't think I've got an update. I've been pretty focused, as you might imagine, on the situation, so I don't have an updated comment from what we put out. Thanks.
Can you talk, Governor, do you mind talking about kind of your experience in Everson and Sumas today and kind of comparing it with and where else you've been in the past couple of days from Tukwila and Mount Vernon?
Yeah. What I would say is that, I was in Pierce County a couple days ago and in communities like Ording and South Prairie. What I would say is, each situation has some differences, obviously, right? In some communities, the infrastructure that's in place has been put up in recent years that have really helped. So, for example, in Ording, Washington, in Pierce County, they literally had, it was kind of fascinating, they had a video that showed what happened in the last flood. Pretty devastating to their town. Infrastructure got put up, levee system, they've been remarkably dry by comparison. So there have been places where I've heard from local elected officials and others by saying, hey, when infrastructure's been put in, like in Mount Vernon, the seawall that got put in, folks were very clear that had that not gone in 6, 7, 8 years ago, downtown would have been underwater. So I was able to be at that press conference, see that, then walk through downtown, get a lunch, right? Visit the local bookstore, buy some books. You get the idea, right? I could do that. They were all clear this could only happen because of that investment. So, to your question, in communities I visit today, we need more infrastructure. Right? We need more infrastructure. There's a cost to that, right? And there's lots of communities that need that all across the state. So our job as elected officials and tribal leaders is prioritizing our resources to make sure we're addressing that infrastructure need. And I've already spoken to my team in a conversation, I think it was this morning saying, hey, I want to be checking out, hey, our flood districts, for example, that we have around the state. I'm familiar with King Counties. I was on the King County Council. Where are those dollars going, right? I want to drill down some details because we need to make sure we're prioritizing the infrastructure right now. And so there's going to be some conversations to come around that as well. But I think we're all in agreement that there's the success stories in Ording and Mount Vernon, we need to continue replicating in communities like the ones I saw earlier today.
And we're going into a pretty difficult budget session, so how do you make sure
Thanks
that
for reminding me of that, yes.
Sorry, man, it's due next week.
Yes,
but,
it is,
like,
yeah.
How do you make sure that those infrastructure priorities and making sure that what happened in Everson and Sumas isn't repeated? Everybody I've talked to is saying we've had another Centurion
Yep.
flood event in 4 years. Like,
Yep.
how do you make sure that there's money in a very difficult budget situation?
Yeah, so at a high level, what I'll say is different parts of our budget, as our legislators certainly know, right? Different parts of our budget are in a different situation. So our operating budget is facing a multi-billion-dollar shortfall, right? That budget's extremely stressed. On the other hand, we have parts of our budget, like the capital budget, where we are actually in a position to make investments. So I don't want to get out ahead of announcements that we'll be making tomorrow related to housing and Friday in terms of infrastructure. But the budget that my team's been putting together for a period of months now has always prioritized those two investments, or housing, and we're certainly need that in light of what's going on around our state right now for folks who are suffering, and infrastructure. And I've been saying for a long time, since I got elected governor, is we need to have a greater investment in our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, all across the state. Candidly, it's been neglected for too long. We need to reprioritize that, and so you will see a significant investment in that when that gets rolled out on Friday. So, you know, it's good news, bad news in our budget, right? There are parts of our budget that are certainly stable and we can make investments. Obviously, the legislature will have thoughts about my proposed budget. Of course, that's the way this process works. But I do think there is a growing sense from talking to legislators just in the last week of a sense of that infrastructure needs a significant investment. And I feel confident that we'll see a significant investment this year.
And one last question. Have you had any conversations with BC Premier David Eby about the flood response? It seems like folks living in Abbotsford are a little upset.
Yeah, I have. We met, I'm sorry the days are running together. I think it was yesterday. It might have been the day before, my apologies. But I met with him recently. It was a Zoom call, but I met with him to talk about the situation. And our teams are in communication, as you might imagine. And so we had a good conversation. He's been very helpful. We have a good relationship, as you might imagine. And so we obviously talked about what's going on, talked about our impacted communities. I mentioned I was coming up this way today. And we agreed we'd have another conversation, obviously, in the not too distant future. We all agree we got to get through some things that are right in front of us right now. And but we agreed, hey, there's a border, but rivers go where rivers go, floods go where floods go. They're not paying attention to a line on a map. And so I think I just would say at this point is, you know, we have a good relationship, we have a good partnership. That's been true with British Columbia and Washington State for a long time. Our goal is to continue that, and we'll be having conversations kind of moving forward about how we can work together to address the situation.
Governor, could you describe how it felt to see the community really showing up for each other? Seems like an echoed theme throughout all of our representatives up here is that the community is really showing up for one another. Could you describe how that feels to see in action?
Yeah, I mean, the word I would use is it's inspiring. I mean, it really is. I mean, as a governor of a state, you hope, right? You hope that's what you'll find, but you don't know, right? I mean, a crisis is a crisis. Things are chaotic. A lot of information is coming in fast. People are under a lot of stress. And so you don't know, right? And different people respond differently to a situation like that. And that's why, for me, I have found it so inspiring that it's just been problem-solving mode, right? Let's work together. Let's figure this out. Let's work together. You know, tribal nations saying, hey, we're not as badly impacted as others. We can provide shelter to folks who might need it, right? I can't tell you how many mayors of cities I've spoken to said, hey, Bob, we're actually good, but we've got some resources. We're happy to help out neighbors who are impacted. And then literally neighbors, right? Mm-hmm. Helping neighbors, obviously on a large scale all across the state. So, you know, I really believe that is what's going to help get us through this. We need to hold on to that, right, and maintain that, because I think it's binding us together right now in a way that's pretty profound, and we're going to need it going forward.
And what message would you want to send to those stressed out members of the community who are facing what is undoubtedly going to be one of the hardest moments of their lives?
Yeah, others may want to chime in, but what I would say is we see you, right? Like, I have, and I guarantee you, everybody here, we have multiple conversations every day with our teams and folks in our community who are directly impacted by this, and that we're doing everything we can to move resources as quickly as possible to those individuals. And so, again, I tell my team all the time, this is a crisis of historic proportions in our state. We need to act like that. And one more thing I just will add before opening up to others is, I've spoken to a number of folks who are dealing with the crisis out there. They're a first responder or they're an elected official. They're dealing with it and then going to their home, right, late at night to deal with a situation at their home to protect their home and their loved ones, which is, a whole nother level of commitment, obviously, when you talk to a first responder who's doing that. So no, it's been inspiring. I've opened up to anyone else
I
who wants
just want
to
to add that our business partners at British Petroleum, or BP actually, they're not British Petroleum anymore, BP and Phillips 66. These are two large refineries, and they have a large infrastructure of their own for firefighting as well as other disaster relief and all this. And both times they have been a great resource for us. You just have to make a phone call. They bring materials, they bring equipment, they bring people, volunteers working 24/7 side by side, and they have just the other flood was not too long ago. Mm-hmm. Some people already know each other as well. So I think that's a blessing for us, and I want to give them a shout. Thank you. Thank you for being part of this community. And there are many examples of our nonprofits who have stepped up to help with small monies. The government not easily write a check to the individual. It's very difficult process-wise. But I think our nonprofits have been very easy. They bring that money. They say, okay, you needed 3 heaters. Here's the check. Go find one. And I heard the Amazon was here.
That's right.
And they are saying, okay, tell us what you need. We'll just deliver the material. Mm-hmm. So I think those are the things that are very heartening to see that community coming together.
Can you practice one more question?
Governor, may I just real quick?
Absolutely,
Thank you, Governor. I think one thing I'd like to say to folks too, if I may, in addition to what the governor and executive has said, is, we have our work cut out for us. Mm-hmm. I think the governor has said so much, and I completely agree. We have some work in the near term that we absolutely can do, and then we have some things that are going to take more time. I'm committed to working as hard as I can on behalf of our community. I know everyone up here is. We do have a legislative session coming up, and that includes this session, but also sessions beyond. And I'm just really inspired, Governor, by your remarks and you being here and really walking that walk. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. One last question. Yeah, go for it.
We've talked a lot about local and state efforts to do cleanup and support our communities. Do you think the federal government will honor that emergency declaration that they previously said they would honor? Do you think that they're going to show up for us?
Well, so just to be clear, there are 2 different processes, right? So first they've announced the federal declaration of emergency, right, which we appreciate, and they did that quickly. And I appreciate all the voices from different folks across the state who reached out to the administration to request that. So that helps us with short-term needs, saving lives, clearing debris, very significant, but short-term, not the financial aspect. The request for disaster relief is a separate process entirely. Mm-hmm. So the fact that an emergency was declared by the federal government is obviously a good sign when it comes to requesting disaster relief. And so all I can really say is, I don't know what they're going to do. What I can say is that we'll be making as a state an extremely compelling case that the scope of the challenge here exceeds the capacity for all of us to meet. And that's literally the definition. You have to meet a number of things. That is one you have to meet is it's beyond the scope. It's a disaster. And that is what we have. That's going to take a lot of work. It's easy to say we're going to submit that. Trust me, there is a massive amount of work that gets done at a very hyper-local level up to the state to then communicate that to the federal government. Number 2, I'm communicating directly with Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. She was gracious enough to call me a few days ago. I sent her a text yesterday, updating her on what's going on. And so we'll be relying on many voices to communicate exactly what the need is. That's been something I've communicated to every stop I go to, is to, whether it's a mayor of a small town or a high-ranking Republican elected official, we need lots of voices, right, to the administration to articulate, not just mine, not just the state's, lots of voices. And so, I'm confident I'm positive we'll make a compelling case. And And I'm ready to get on a plane, fly back to DC, talk to whoever I've got to talk to. I think everybody here is prepared to do that. So we'll see. But the main thing we need right now is really do the best possible job of making the most compelling case. And that's really a big focus. We're already having conversations, that is, and to do it as quickly as possible.
How concerned are you about the levees this week?
Look, I mean, concern's not the word. I mean, a lot of folks ask me, you know, respectfully, I have my concern. I'm concerned about everything. And concern's not even the word, right? Like, I mean, I'm deeply worried, okay, about the state of our infrastructure right now while we see the water levels that we're seeing. I mean, just being brutally honest, like it is, we are not out of the woods of this thing by any stretch of the imagination. And so, so yes, of course, and I think we all are. That said, there are many, many people working extremely hard to monitor the dams, monitor the infrastructure, monitor the levees. We're staging resources at places we have some concerns about to make sure if something happens, we have folks right there. That's National Guard, that's FEMA. We have lots of local resources. So there is an awful lot of work that's going on to try and anticipate where there could be a problem and making sure we're there if that does happen. So we appreciate the extremely hard work of everybody who's doing that literally around the clock. So, you know, for a few more days, you know, while the weather is still the way it is, we're gonna be concerned until those water levels get down. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.